You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
This is Famous B, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Well, hello there. Welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio, right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. And this week, we get transformed. Yes, we get famous, because we dialed 423-GET-FAME to interview Famous B. Actually, that's not entirely true. His phone was broken, so we did it over Facebook Messenger. But for the purposes of my point, we dialed 423-GET-FAME. Lucha Underground returns in May to the El Rey Network, and Lucha Underground Seasons 1 and 2 will premiere on Netflix next week, so be sure and check those out. And we can't wait for them to get back from this hiatus because it's entirely too long. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Santino last week, and I hope you guys will enjoy our interview with the TNA Impact Wrestling superstar. I don't know if I'm supposed to say TNA anymore. I won't tell you who it is until it happens, but that'll be next week here on Interactive Wrestling Radio. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned for Famous B, and stay tuned after the interview for Patrick and I talking about everything from professional wrestling to Full House. So, why not?
What's up, everybody? This is Matt Stryker, and you are listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
If you want to conquer something, you must be ready for a war.
This is insane. Lucha Underground is out of this world. I've never seen anything like this.
Lucha Underground Season 3. New episode Wednesday at 8 p.m. on El Rey Network.
Hardcore Country!
In the archives at WrestlingEpicenter.com and InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com. Our exclusive interview with the one and only Mickie James as we talk about her music career and what it was like to wrestle at WrestleMania.
Oh, it was surreal. Like, just to go from wrestling in front of, 100 people here and there to, 1,000 to 10,000 to 90,000 people. I mean, that's just crazy. And plus it's something that I worked so diligently and so hard at for so many years to finally make it. It was definitely a huge accomplishment in my life, and just the moment itself, like just even at WrestleMania, my first WrestleMania was just outstanding. Like I was, because it was definitely a long road to get there, so that we just totally embraced the moment. Like, yeah, sure, it was a lot of pressure. I mean, I think just going in, it was a lot of pressure. I mean, it's my first WrestleMania. There's thousands of people, and I'm winning the championship for the first time, so the whole moment in itself was just incredible. And then
check out this great interview and so many others right now at WrestlingEpicenter.com, available in MP3 format and on YouTube.
Hola, this is the Wednesday Night Delight, Johnny Mundo, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Famous Bees are about to rock metal things to settle things. Stuffing Masquerita in the trash.
The garbage has been taken out.
What? Give me this. All right, little Johnny Polo for you. Here we go.
Time to play a little music.
Uh-oh. Hey! I wonder what Gordon and Mr. Hooper think of Masquerita's Oscar the Grouch impersonation.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with me right now is one of my favorite parts of one of my favorite wrestling shows right now, And that show's on a hiatus. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But it is Famous B. Famous B, are you with us?
I am with you. How is it going?
It is great to talk to you. I'm doing great. And you know what I did to call you? I called you at 423 Get Fame.
Get fame. That's what I'm talking about, man. It's a phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, everybody and their mama has been calling me at 423 Get Fame, man. It's just been taking off ever since season 2, man. And it's a fun, exciting thing.
It absolutely has taken on a life of its own. I'll tell you, we were watching the Way of the Turkey Marathon on the weekend of Thanksgiving, and my kids kept saying, I bet that's not his number. I bet that's not his number. Call the number. So, of course, I had to call, and, well, I left a message, so whoever got it, got it.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's one of those things where, you get I see mixed reactions, online on social media, and then, with some people saying, like it can't be a real number, and a lot of people are like, yeah, I called it, try it, check it out. So, at first, I think that everybody was a little bit surprised that it's actually a legit number. So, that's one of the cool things about Lucha Underground, and one of the cool things about the show. It's just that the creativity is just off the charts, man.
Absolutely. It is absolutely off the charts. And, man, you just celebrate. You're not just from Lucha Underground, though. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you got into this crazy business. You just recently celebrated an anniversary of sorts, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. So, how did you decide that you wanted to get involved in the crazy world of professional wrestling?
Well, you know what? It's actually a funny story. It was one of those things where I was actually flyered for the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy way back in 2007. And at the time, I was unaware of independent wrestling out here. And, I was definitely unaware of a school to actually train to become a professional wrestler. And, I've been a lifelong fan of the business my entire life, ever since, the time I was just a little pup, growing up. I've always gravitated to professional wrestling. And, when I got of age, I went to all the shows that was in town. And one of those nights, man, I got a flyer and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. An actual wrestling academy. So it sat around the house and I thought about it. And after a couple months, I was like, yeah, let me call and see what this is about. I mean, what could it hurt? You know what I mean? And, I called and I spoke with Joey Chaos, the head trainer over there at Santino Brothers. And, I spoke with him and, he invited me down to an orientation and, man, I never looked back. So it was one of those things where it was like, I stumbled onto the school. And then once I did it, it was like, okay, yeah, I get this. I was one of those naturals, that just picked up everything smoothly and just wanted it, once I made that commitment to stick with my training and to get into business.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, who was some of your influences? Because I can see a lot in what you do now with your more of a managerial role, maybe a little Slick, maybe a little Bobby the Brain Heenan in there. But when you were actually when you were fully wrestling, and you are still a wrestler, who were some of your influences?
Wow. I mean, I looked up pretty much to just about everybody. I mean, as a kid, you couldn't tell me anything, when it came to like Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, of course, because they were the larger than life characters. I was definitely a huge fan of Macho Man. And as I got a little bit older, I started to notice the business for its work rate. And then that's when I started to fall in love with guys like Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. And then, getting older, then I started to love the cruiserweights and, Ray and Eddie and Nuvi and all the things that the cruiserweights did once they came over to the States, NECW and WCW. And man, I'm a big fan of the business, so I admire pretty much, everybody, who lace up those boots and step in a ring, who've come before me, but those are just a couple to name a few.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you got the big break with Lucha Underground. That's where you've become a household name, and your phone number too has become a household phone number. um,
Yes.
I got to tell you, I had a knee jerk reaction to Lucha at first, and people would tell me, "You got to watch it, you got to watch it." I'm like, if it's on, I'll watch it, and I never did. And then I turned it on the week before the second Aztec Warfare when it was Ivelisse and Mil Mortez, and it blew my
Right.
freaking mind.
Right.
And I've gone back and I've watched every single episode, and man, your character's evolution on that show has been just phenomenal. Um, from your early goings in Lucha Underground, where you were just purely a wrestler, to
Correct.
what you are now, basically, talk me through it. How did that happen? What made you decide to step out of the ring full time and to start being more of that, maybe even a little bit of an old school manager role?
Right, right. Well, the situation was I was actually hired to play a different character on the show, and for whatever reason or not, that character didn't come into existence. And the writers in the beginning they made a lot of different changes here and there to just different characters and ideas for storylines and things like that that they had in mind. So, um, you know, my character was not a character for whatever reason, like I said, that didn't come into existence on the show at that particular point in time during season one when we first started the first set of tapings. So what they did was they just used Famous B, the independent pro wrestler that they had, and pretty much enhancement matches for the characters, to put over the characters that they were running with, like your Mortises and your Pentagons and things of that nature, or guys of that nature, I should say. And pretty much it came to a point by the end of the season one, where the writers decided to just make Famous B a character on a show versus Famous B playing a character on a show. And then that's when they got the bright idea for everybody to call the number 423 Get Fame and to pretty much utilize other aspects of my abilities besides just my in-ring talent, which has been fantastic for me, you know what I mean? Just to have that platform like Lucha Underground and just to be on that stage and to go out there and in case, people didn't know, other, facets of my abilities, now they can see it and, now it's, for, put on display for the whole world to see. So it's been one of those things that has been extremely fun, you know what I mean? To just take the vision that they saw and to run with it and just to let everybody know just exactly what Famous B can do in and out of the ring.
Absolutely. And the debut of that character was the vignettes, the late night infomercials. They were
Yes,
just a
yes.
hoot to watch. Were they half as much fun to make as they came off on television?
It was incredible to make. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, I was working with the director, Skip Chasen, on them, and just his vision for it. It was like one of those things where you know he was very easy to work with in terms of like my facial expressions and where to look when I, hit certain lines and things like that. And, he would pretty much do it and I would get it right away. Like, you know what I mean? Because it was, he's just a fantastic director and it's so easy just to follow his lead. And you can, as he's speaking to you, you can see his vision, see where he's going. So, I just took the vision and the direction and just ran with it, and that's what we came up with. It's fun stuff, very fun stuff.
It absolutely was. They could have ran with those. Remember in on Nitro when like they ran the Conan music video like 360 times? They could have run those things 100 times, and I would have laughed each time they aired.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I had a blast doing those commercials, and it's been so much fun. And just working with the beautiful Brenda, you know what I
Oh
mean, and
yeah.
just bringing her into the mix and working with her has been a pleasure. We have great chemistry. We, hit it off right away in terms of our on-screen personas together, and we feed
Mhm.
off each other very well. And it was just one of those things that was natural. It was one of those things that was meant to be. You know what I mean? And that's like a lot of other angles, storylines, and characters. They, like I said, going back to season one, the first set of tapings, they had a lot of plans that didn't fall through, and they had a lot of adjustments that needed to be made. And man, I'm telling you, those adjustments, pretty much paid off. You know what I mean? Everything has, fell into place. In the temple, I should say, for its purpose and for its reason. And I think that that's what makes the product, as awesome as it is, and gets the fans excited as they get, because everything just kind of fell in the right place.
It's so hard because I like all wrestling. I watch WWE, not as much as I used to, but I watch some
Right.
WWE. I watch TNA. That used to be my number one, but they've had some rough years the past couple years.
Absolutely.
Um, so when you watch a Lucha Underground show, and then you try to get the kids to sit down and watch an Impact, where the crowd is just completely different. I
Right.
mean, that audience in that temple is an animal unto itself, and their wrestling IQ is so huge.
Right.
One of my favorite matches that you ever had was with Masquerita Sagrada, and part of that was both what you guys did, Matt Stryker's incredible commentary that had me bawling, but
Yes.
also the audience. The audience got everything. Like when you pulled out the arrogance can, they got it. They
Right.
they knew what it was and started chanting Rick the Model. I mean, that's just
Yep.
amazing stuff.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, man. Huge pop. I mean, when I took that thing out of the toolbox, man, and that crowd exploded. And then the funny thing about it was, um, the crowd that had my bag didn't get to see it, so I got two pops, so to speak. You know what I mean? I pulled it out, and everybody on the side, that was in front of me that saw it was like, wow. And then, when I turned around and the crowd behind me, it was like an extra delay, like, oh, that's what it is. So that was a cool moment in that match, and one of the things that stick out in my head about that match. But man, that match was so much fun, and working with Masquerita was just, man, everything that we did was just, it was money, it was gold. I like to say, everything that famous B touch turns to gold. And man, that storyline, that whole angle, it was pure genius. It was written beautifully. The story was fantastic, and Masquerita was great to work with. The culmination of our feud in that match was just, man. I mean, talking about putting the icing on the cake, right?
I got to tell you, my son actually recorded that on his iPod and brought it in to show his friends at school the next day because he just thought it was the funniest thing he ever saw. So he
that
thought it was an awesome match. So,
that
and he had
is
no idea about Rick the Model, just to point out. I mean, that's something that only us old timers get, but it was
right.
awesome.
Right. Oh, that is incredible. That is so awesome. Man, I'm glad everyone enjoyed that match, man, as much as I enjoyed being in the match, and just doing all the, the things that we did, and all the spots, and just, all the, weapons that came out, and just, it was just so much fun. It was like one of those nights where it was just magic, and nothing could go wrong. And I'm glad it came off that way to all the fans, and just seeing all the reviews online. A lot of people enjoyed it, and I enjoyed putting it together and performing it. Man, it was one heck of a match, man.
Absolutely. Is it difficult to work with a little person like that? I know he's a legend, but is it at all difficult to work with him?
Not at all. Not at all. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. It's really no different. As a professional, you got to be able to get in there, and you got to adapt to all kind of different, opponents of shapes and sizes, and styles, move sets, and just, different styles. And, that's one of the things that, it comes with the territory of being a professional wrestler. It's one of the things that you understand and what you train for, you know what I mean? Because it's not like, other sports where they have like, different, like how you see in like MMA where they have different, weight classes or whatever. It's not like that. Professional wrestling is not like that. You get in there, with any and everybody. So, it's one of those things that it just, it's just another match, another day in the office.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes to what we talked about with Johnny Mundo as well as Matt Stryker on this show. And that
Mhm.
is one of the first times I watched the show I mentioned was a guy versus a girl match. And that's just something you don't see
Right.
very much outside of Lucha Underground. It used to happen a little in WWE, but not really much anymore. They kind of have their own division split off, and you really
Right.
don't see a guy full out hit a girl. How do you think that translates to the mainstream audience? Do you think the guys in the audience still have that little bit of a knee-jerk kind of, hey, that's not okay?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a mixed reaction. I mean, I think that it's one of those things where nowadays, in the society we live in, everything tends to have to be politically correct, so to speak. But I mean, if you're watching it for the entertainment value and just the storylines and just everything that Lucha Underground offers its fans, then it's one of those things that you just have to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, and you just kind of understand that here on this television show that's what this television show does. You know what I mean? And and it's just one of those things where Lucha Underground carries and has its own philosophies and ways of doing things, and it's not your typical standard way of wrestling as society has grown to know it nowadays. And Lucha Underground pretty much has a mind of its own, and that temple everyone is treated equally, and and I think that I think that is a good thing, because the women that we have can very well hold their own. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
One of them ended up world champion, so it's definitely.
Absolutely. So they get in there and they do it. So, but to answer your question once again, it's a 50-50 thing. I think it's the ones who are watching it and judging it purely off the entertainment value that it provides are the ones that probably don't have a problem with it. But, the other ones that are judging it and comparing it to other federations probably are the ones who kind of have a problem with it. So it just depends on what type of viewer you are and, how you perceive it.
Very cool. My son wanted me to ask a question. I should have asked it a moment ago when we were talking about your match with Masquerita, but I'll throw it in here too. We had Brian Cage on, another Brian from Lucha Underground, a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, really now, and he was talking about chair shots to the head, and he said if you know how to do it and you don't overdo it, it's not a big deal.
Right.
You took a heck of a shot to the head in that Masquerita match with the picture. Probably not the same as a chair, but what's your thoughts on headshots and how Lucha Underground again has that different philosophy and doesn't follow the trends of the other industry, the other leaders of the industry, really, and does their own thing?
Right. Well, we're all professionals. I mean, this sport isn't ballet. You know what I mean? I know Lucha Underground is a television show, but at the end of the day, we go out there and we get in that ring, man, and we're all professionals at what we do. It's just one of those things where, like I was trained like old school style and, just real, stiff and snug, like, style of wrestling and working. So, it's one of those things to me, like I said, that come with the territory. And, I really don't have a problem with it. And, I agree with what Cage said. If you know how to do it, then, and, there's a technique to it. If you know how to do it, I don't see a problem with doing it. You know what I mean? We are very different, as you can tell.
That's for sure. And that's what I've been looking for. I've been looking for something different, and I definitely found it with this show. So, all right, we're going to let you go in just a few minutes, just a few more questions for you. But
not a problem.
Joke intended, you moved on to bigger things with Dr. Wagner Jr., and now
Right.
it seems like before the break you were pursuing Tejano. How far can we see a famous B family, like a Bobby Heenan family, where we get a whole group of guys involved in this?
Well, my goal and my plan, which is one of the things that I announced a couple of weeks prior to the hiatus, is to launch my full-on talent agency. So that is my goal. My goal is to manage a stable of guys and have a talent agency and be that one in the temple, with an army, because everyone is affiliated by their respective tribes. And as you may have noticed, Famous B isn't. So I'm creating my own tribe. You might as well call it the 8th tribe. But, it's one of those things where I am, just, looking for the top best talent in Lucha Underground, to take to fame. And I definitely have my eyes on Tejano. He's a thoroughbred, so I definitely want to get that guy in my grasp. Just waiting for him to see the lights. That's all I need for him to see the light.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about this hiatus, and I got to tell you, as a fan, it's extremely frustrating to put up with because it is a TV show. It's different in that respect, and that does happen with TV. There's between seasons. Sometimes there is mid-season hiatuses. However, this one felt ill-timed. It felt like you guys were getting some really hot storylines going, and then it
Right.
kind of got cooled off by this.
Right.
What's your view as a talent of this, and how eager are you guys to get back to the temple and to tape new episodes? I know the rest of the season's already been filmed, but
Right. Well, it is, professional wrestling. It's one of those things where it's like, as a professional wrestler, you're used to, going week in and week out, and there really is no off season in professional wrestling, and that's just the nature of the game, and that's just what we do. But well, me as a talent, I also do realize that, like you said, this is a television show. It's a whole different ball game. So these are the things that are going to happen, and you just got to roll with the punches. And luckily, as a talent, I'm able to stay busy and do other things, outside of Lucha Underground. But in terms of Lucha Underground itself, it's one of those things where we all love to film and work and do what we do there in Lucha Underground, the temple, and it's a tight knit group, and everyone loves filming Lucha Underground. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things when as the fans are waiting, we're waiting as well. We're just as eager to get back and to film more and put on those matches in front of the Lucha Clique there in the temple. And as much as you guys anticipate the show's return, we do as talent, for it to return on TV and live, taping and filming more. So, it's, like I said, you just have to, as a talent, realize that, hey, it's a TV show, and, things are a little bit different from what we're used to because it's a TV show first.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, a guy like you would probably have a lot of opportunity because you can work, you can talk, you've got a look to you. With WWE's constant expansion and the conquering that's going on right now worldwide and of the independent scene, is it a cool thing for you to see them expanding so much, or is it scary to you to see so many of these really good, high ranking independent guys get swallowed up by the WWE machine?
Oh no, I mean, I'm pretty much one of those type of guys that kind of just stay in my own lane and pretty much just focus on, just bettering myself as a talent and as an overall performer. And it's I look at it as a good thing for the business. You know what I mean? It's a good thing, I think. And it's I'm one of those type of individuals, those that type of talent that is just very focused on once again just improving myself and improving my craft, and just loving to see the business bloom and loving to see it blossom. And it's a good thing that the business is as hot as it is right now. And it's fun and it's challenging and it's exciting, when you look out there and you look what's around you and to see where everyone stands and where everyone's at, and just kind of do your thing and gauge where you're at accordingly. So it's a fun thing and it's a good thing. So
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so when we do get back to Lucha in May, what can we expect to see from Famous B?
a whole lot of shenanigans.
Good answer.
A whole lot of shenanigans, a whole lot of comedy, and just wild and crazy appearances with my beautiful partner, the beautiful Brenda. We're, like I said, we're on a mission to build this full-on talent agency, and we'll stop at nothing to recruit whoever we need to recruit when we need to recruit them. So that's what you can expect from Famous B.
And if I didn't say so earlier, she is awesome, by the way. Brenda is awesome.
Absolutely, she is fantastic.
All right. So when we send, where can we find you on the independent scene right now outside of the Lucha Underground world?
Right now, what I'm doing is I'm pretty much working on some other things that I have in the works. I am looking to actually start my own podcast coming up here pretty soon. There's also a couple of promotions you'll see me at in the future that I will release when the time is right on my social media, my Twitter and fan page and all that good stuff. So it's some it's I got some stuff cooking, that I'm ready to unleash on everyone in the near future. So you can definitely be on the lookout for all the things that I'm getting ready to do um, within the next month or two.
Absolutely. Keep me posted, and I'll help you promote it to the best of my ability, man.
I will.
All right. Well, before I let you go, can I ask for one last favor from you?
Of course, of course.
The way we always start a show is with the guest saying, "This is so and so," and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Do you mind giving us one of those liners?
This is Famous B, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Dude, that was perfect, and on the first take, too.
I'm a pro, man. I'm always ready to rock.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time here tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I'll post you, I'll Facebook you as soon as I get this up. It probably won't be until the weekend, till Saturday.
Awesome, no problem, man. Thanks for having me, and yeah, anytime you need me, man, let's do it.
That was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for sorry for badgering you over Facebook until we until we got it recorded.
No. Oh no, it's not a problem. It's not a problem at all, man. I'm glad we got a chance to connect and do it, man. So anytime, man. I loved it.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter, on Twitter at James Epicenter, and of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hey, this is the Macho Man Randy Savage, and you're listening to the Interactive Interview. Oh, yeah.
There was a boy who was told he was going nowhere, crashing, clawing, rising, falling. Now he's a man, and he did what he said he would do. Rising, falling, never stop flying. He saw it coming, even as a young boy, he saw it coming.
And welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com and WrestlingEpicenter.com and YouTube. And hell, if you just type in www, you're going to find us somehow, I think. We also answer to Hey You. That's another one of our names that we won't react to. So we have a lot of names on this show. Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Has anyone called us shitheads yet?
Oh, I'm sure many, many times. New Jack probably called us that. He didn't like us very much. I was doing I'm going through some of my old our old interviews, but ones that even predate you, and doing it and making YouTube videos for them and putting them on CD for myself, so I have a copy of them. And it's amazing that I don't, isn't it? Anyway, long story short, when I'm doing all this stuff, I'm going back and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that guy didn't like me, or that guy really did like me, but we never really connected with that guy again. And New Jack was one that just, there was no connection there whatsoever. What can
Well, I'm going to ask you right here now that we're on the air and recording, because I remember the New Jack interview. Right after the interview ended, what happened when you stopped recording? I'm just curious, because I know, having done interviews with you before, that you may carry on a conversation with the guest after the interview is officially over. So I'm just wondering, what happened right after you stopped recording?
Well, for those who don't know what we're talking about, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to give you a political answer. I will answer the question. I said something about John Cronus, who, by the way, I liked a lot, and I talked to the sister of after his death because we were one of the only sites that typed up a nice write-up about him and said what a great wrestler he was and how he was a great big part of the ECW tag team division with the Dudley Boys and all those other Public Enemy as part of the Eliminators with Perry Saturn. And I wrote up a nice write-up about it, and I said, what other big guy like that? And he was pretty big, especially for ECW, at that point in time, could do 450 splashes off the top. I mean, in that sense, when I look at guys like Marty the Moth Martinez, I see a lot of John Cronus in him because
I love him, by the way.
He is awesome.
He's like, I look at Marty the Moth and I think, man, if Bray Wyatt was in Lucha Underground, how amazing would he be?
Well, there's a lot of similarities there, too. Yeah, I mean, this guy is an amazing athlete. Doesn't look like it, but he is. And so was John Cronus, but he didn't believe in working out. He didn't believe in getting in shape, and that's largely the reason he never got the breaks that Saturn got. Plus, he wasn't Raven's buddy either, so that probably also hurt him. Anyway, so I made that comment about Cronus because for a short hot minute there after Saturn left, he teamed with John Cronus, and oh man, he took offense to it, and it's like, dude, I'm not insulting him. I think he was great, and at that time, I believe he was still alive. He just went nuts. He just started, don't talk about no train wreck or whatever the phrase was, something like that. So, if I recall, we got back on track before the end of the interview. It wasn't comfortable, and at the end of it, it was your typical, thanks, man. And he said, all right, man. And that was it. And that was it. There wasn't like a very big pleasantries. But there wasn't, if I recall, I don't think we ended the call at that particular time. I think that we did.
No, you did finish the interview. I remember that.
Yeah, we did get back on track, but it was uncomfortable. It was like, all right, I clearly have pissed this guy off. So if I say anything else that might make him mad, he's going to go nuts on me. And it's like, and a lot of people will say, well, I was afraid. What are you afraid of? He's going to yell at you over a phone? That's not going to hurt you at all. So chill out. I mean, I know it's New Jack who beat the holy shit out of it like an 80-year-old dude. And he's seen 10 years ago.
New Jack's one of the few guys I would legitimately be afraid of because I'm like, he strikes me as the type of guy that would go to the trouble of coming to my place and getting in my face and asking me, like, what the fuck you asking me these questions?
Yeah. That reminds me, and it also circulates around Terry Reynolds, who, by the way, dated New Jack for a hot minute there after her WWE run, which is boggling to the mind.
That I can't even picture that.
It's not, and a lot of people, when I say that, reacted with racial stuff. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with him being a scumbag and her being a mother.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with race at all. I don't know why people immediately jump to that shit, but whatever.
I would picture Terry with someone like The Rock. Like, just a really handsome, well-built dude.
Well, I mean, I think she's a little bit of a wild child, more wild than you know. I mean, you know that she was like doing like the storyline with Brian Pillman was somewhat legit. You get that, right?
I'm trying to remember the storyline with Brian Pillman. What was that?
Well, the storyline was that they used to date. If your idea of dating was having three-ways in the back room of WCW and stuff like that. Yeah,
sure. For some people it is.
And that's what he was, referencing when they did that story that basically led into his death. But that was the storyline that he was like.
Oh, was this where he had to wear the dress?
Yep, and they did the thing where he got to dress her up pretty much like a slut and all that other stuff.
And they went into the X-Files, the Brian Pillman XX. Okay, I remember that.
That was awesome stuff. That was awesome storyline stuff, but I felt so bad that Brian wasn't Brian anymore in the ring.
Oh God, it's so sad. If you had the 97 personality mixed with like the 94, 93 talent, he would have been like a main eventer. Like he would have been like WWE champion.
There's no doubt, because the character, the promo ability, everything was there for him in '97. But after the accident, he wasn't the same guy physically. And if you doubt that, anybody, just go back and watch. I'll even give you one if you have WWE Network. WCW Fall Brawl 1995. Watch his opening match with Johnny B. Bad. Holy shit. And that's with Mark Merrow, who gets a lot of crap about not being the greatest worker. They had a phenomenal match. I mean, match of the year candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brian was one of those guys. I remember back in his WCW days, he had great matches all the time, and that's part of the good thing. Especially you and I have always been two of the guys that have defended WCW and kind of like, look, guys, yes, they did make mistakes, and yes, they kind of caused their own downfall, but not everything they did was crap. And you and I were always kind of two of the ones kind of yelling into the, just screaming at a wall, just being like, look, guys, WCW did some great stuff, and people would just continuously mock it. Now I think with the WWE Network, more and more people are discovering the good stuff, and I'm not having to defend WCW as much. People are actually, discovering some of the good material, and that's good to see.
Right. That's actually like the catch-22 for them about the network, is that their reference of WCW is not just of their DVD releases, where they could control what they put on there and make it look as foolish as possible. When you just put a complete show up, people can watch it and say, wait, but you said this sucked, but this doesn't really suck.
Yep. Well, history's written by the winners, but sooner or later, I guess the truth comes out sooner or later, right?
I guess so, yeah. I like that phrase. There was a phrase the Sean Hannity show used to have, and it was an announcer, Scott Shannon, who was a DJ in New York, used to be the guy who would do his, break stuff. And one of them was, in the end, the truth always wins. And I thought, that's really cool. I'm going to keep using that one. So,
almost sounded like Ventura there.
In the end, the truth always wins, Monsoon. Something like that. We have monsoons out here in Arizona every June through August. And whenever it monsoons out, I look at Caroline and I go, it's going to monsoon. And she just looks at me like, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh, man.
Okay. So, speaking of Brian Fame, Famous B, as he is, was our guest this week. And, man, he is just a phenomenal talent. And
Fame.
Oh, he gave us that, too. I said, I was going to try and call you. And he did the whole Get Fame thing for us, which was awesome.
Nice.
He is a phenomenal talent. He gets his character. He gets the business. I mean, there's some people you talk to that you could just tell, number one, love what they do, and number two, get their character completely. And I think he does. And I think that is a very cool thing for Lucha Underground, to have a character that gets it. Now, he's not the main event or anything like that. Maybe one day he can be managing the main event or something like that. But he is an important part of the puzzle, almost in the vein of like Bobby the Brain Heenan was, where he was a heel manager that can draw heat. And if they put the right guy with him, like a Tejano, who frankly does not get the biggest crowd reactions, but if they could put a heat machine with him, that might, by proxy, make him, more important to the audience.
Yeah, I love Famous B. I think he's great. You and I have always talked about the importance of managers in wrestling and how that really kind of became a forgotten art form for a while. It kind of started to make a little bit of a comeback with Paul Heyman being the mouthpiece for Brock Lesnar. And in Lucha Underground, you have examples like Katrina and now Famous B, who, through his commercials, which I thought were hilarious.
We talked about those too, yeah. But I said to them, why didn't they air those 300 times like the Conan music videos on Nitro? Because those things were you could watch them a couple of times and still think they're funny.
Yeah. Well, you only have an hour. You don't want to overdo it.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order. You know how many times did we see that Nitro? Got to be 5, 6, 7 times a show, and half the time it was the same one they showed earlier. But there you go.
And when you have all that screen time to fill, it's kind of like Raw. You watch a 3-hour episode of Raw. Why are there so many recaps on the show? It's like, well, you got to fill that 3 hours somehow.
Exactly. It's very, very. I can't watch it, and I'm going to tell you this. I watch Impact. The crowd reaction is the worst part of Impact because the crowd is just so not a lucha crowd. But when I watch WWE, I don't get any excitement or enjoyment or entertainment out of it. And I know that probably has to do with me just not being a WWE guy. And I know it's coming into WrestleMania season, so I should care. But I just find the show to be shit. I'm sorry, but I think it's shit. It doesn't excite me. It's just garbage. And it's, what is that thing we've always said on this show? Something about if everybody's incredible, there is nobody that's really incredible. Well, if every friggin' other week is a pay-per-view, does any of them mean a damn anymore?
No, I mean, WWE has been the victim of their own success, really. They never really evolved past the Monday Night Wars. And you can see that on Raw, because they're still using the same script and format that Bischoff used, that Russo used, where it's like, let's try to outdo each other and outgun each other and have the top guys on the show every single week. And, you know, you'll see when Seth Rollins was the WWE champion, he was wrestling on TV every week and taking table bumps at house shows, which is why his knee got hurt the first time. Time was through interacting with Samoa Joe, but I'll get back to Joe in a minute. Yeah, and they try to have these killer competitive big-time matches on the show every week, and they just don't mean anything. And CM Punk kind of talked about this in his Big Shoot interview on Cole Cabana's podcast, but you have the part-timers like the Rocks, like the Lesnars, like the Goldbergs and Undertakers. They only show up, you know, when they decide to, I guess. And the fans are being conditioned to only care when they show up, which is why the Royal Rumble seemed to be such a bigger deal than usual this year, because all of them were showing up in the Rumble, and they care at WrestleMania because that's when they all show up. And because of that, the stuff that happens week to week doesn't seem to matter as much, because it's like, we know it really doesn't matter until the part-timers show up, and that's like a bad thing to condition fans to do.
It's like if you were watching back in the day and it was Rockers in the main event every week, but nobody really cared until Hogan showed up, or Warrior showed up, or Savage showed up. I mean, it's not really
Well, that's
cool.
the thing. With the part-timers, they're booking them in the way that they used to book their stars back in the day. It's just that they did it back then to keep their stars from getting oversaturated. Now they're doing it because these guys are old and just can't do it anymore.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately.
You did see Undertaker at Royal Rumble, right?
Apparently, he said himself he can't do it anymore after that match. So yeah, I think that pretty much.
He looked horrible. He looked horrible. Like, how bad? Okay, how bad did you think he looked at WrestleMania last year?
Pretty bad.
Worse than that.
I don't know what you can do.
Yeah, he looked fat. He couldn't really walk around the ring. People had to run into him to do spots because he couldn't walk over to them. It was pretty sad.
Go on, Billy. Go get chokeslammed by Grandpa Taker.
You know, you laugh, but that's pretty much what it was.
I mean, it's pretty.
Like you say that like you're joking, but it's like, no, that's probably what they told him to do.
Man, and I far be it for me to insult the old timers because they're my favorites by far. But in WWE, it's really funny because there was a time when the old timers, I'll reference New Age Outlaws and Legion of Doom, the guys who were older, not even old timers, they were like 40 at the time, but not even really old guys, just guys that they were older than the quote unquote young guys, the stars of today, were treated like complete garbage. They were treated like they didn't matter. And how is this old fart going to beat this young guy? Whereas every other company in the history of man created it in the other way. How is this young upstart going to beat this master, this veteran of the game of human chess? And the ironic thing is when Triple H was the young guy, WWE was booked like the other way, where the old guys were the bad guys. And now that Triple H is an old guy, funny, they've changed that tune a little bit.
Oh, it's funny when DX reunited and they were beating everybody, and it was like, oh, okay. Well, what happened to the young guys getting their chance and all this other stuff? And it's like, DX used to make fun of the dinosaurs, and WCW, going back to this whole argument, was called Jurassic Park and all this other stuff. And now it's like, well, guys, I mean, you're the dinosaurs now. Sorry, but
you're older. Yeah, at that point, Shawn was the same age Hogan was, and and Macho was older than Hogan. A lot of people don't know that, but Macho was actually older than Hogan. So there you go.
Yeah. But you're right. It is very interesting how things play out like that.
It is. There's irony there, but there's also, what is the phrase you used earlier? To the victor goes the spoils, or whatever. The history books are written by.
Yeah, history's written by the winners.
All right. Well, you mentioned talking about.
I did want to mention. I said I was going to go back to Samoa Joe.
I was just going there too. Yeah, because I want to be a fairly quick show tonight. But yeah, Samoa Joe made his debut. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, he made his in-ring debut on Monday Night Raw this week. Now, guys, fellow members of the internet wrestling community, I know a lot of you love Samoa Joe. I was a fan of his at various points of his career. I thought 10 years ago he was one of the top talents around on the indie scene, Ring of Honor, TNA, all sorts of things. The Samoa Joe that you saw on Monday Night Raw this week is not the Samoa Joe that was the top of his game, 8, 9, 10 years ago. What we have now is a Joe that's slower and about 20 pounds too heavy. The Joe that you saw on Monday Night Raw that wrestled with Roman Reigns is not a top-level talent. I'm sorry. I was thoroughly underwhelmed by his performance on Monday Night Raw this week.
Did you enjoy the tweets about it, though, by people like Triple H? Like, this new guy is a great talent. New guy?
Who said that?
Triple H called him a new guy.
Okay. I guess he's new in the sense that he's just making his Raw debut. He's new to the Raw roster, but he's not new to the wrestling scene at all.
He's not new, no. He's been around forever. And I've been hard on him because I've had a hard time finding a reason to give a shit. And I'm sorry to swear so much on this show, but I've had a hard time finding a reason to care because it always just seemed like he was involved in garbage. There's been exceptions to that. Well, there's been exceptions to that rule, like when he did the three-way match with Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles on that Impact. That was like mind-blowing. That was awesome. There's been exceptions to that. But then when he gets given the big spot, we blame everybody else for the fact that it flopped than him himself. And I'll reference, Booker T really wasn't trying. No, I just think he was a weak champion. And I mean Samoa Joe.
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't think Booker was trying. I mean, in TNA, and I'm not saying that just for Joe's title reign. I just think Booker T's won in TNA. It's like, look, I love Booker, but he was not giving 100%. And I'll tell you, it was most obvious when he was working with Scott Steiner and they were tag partners. And I'm watching Scott Steiner, busting his ass, and Booker is, clearly not giving a shit. And I was kind of like, come on, dude. Scott's, almost a cripple. And he's, outworking you. Come on.
Why do people say that about Scott Steiner, that he's, almost a cripple?
I've heard, again, based on what I've heard he has trouble walking around backstage after shows.
That's because he's got too many girls swinging on his legs, swinging between his legs.
Maybe.
The freaks.
I love Scott Steiner. Just throw that out there.
I remember there was one time on a Nitro where they went through this time where they pulled the Rick Rude spot where they took a girl from the crowd.
Uh-huh.
And something about Steiner daring her to resist his peaks or whatever. And they brought two of these really skanky-looking chicks out from the crowd. And one of them, while Steiner's talking, falls to her knees in front of him. And that was really uncomfortable television because you had no idea what was going to happen. And you see Buff running interference because I think he's thinking the same thing that I am. Like, oh shit, if this slut whips it out, on national TV. We're getting thrown off the air. Standards and practices ain't gonna like that. So,
That's
that
really
was
funny.
that was when they were funny. They were very one of the very few saving graces of like early 1999 WCW was the.
Yeah, I remember that one show they did where the entire first hour was nothing but vignettes, and the best part of that was Steiner and Bagwell.
They did that a few times. I'll tell you that they did that when Tori Wilson came in as the lovable hooker. Almost
That's
a full.
right. She was David Flair's hooker.
She was her, and that's how she came into the wrestling business.
David Flair's hooker.
David Flair's.
The more
hooker.
you know.
I thought the hooker that the older hooker, because they thought that he had a mommy complex, so they hired an older hooker, and they called her, guess what, Mrs. Robinson. I thought she was hotter than Tori Wilson. I've never liked Tori Wilson very much. She was nice to us though. On our interview, she was very nice.
Oh no, she's very sweet.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, yeah. Regarding Samoa Joe though, are we going to give him any of the blame for hurting Seth Rollins, or are we keeping that off of Joe?
Having watched the segment again, because when I first watched it, I didn't really think anything of it. It didn't look like, on first glance, that Seth had gotten hurt. I don't know. Like, I don't know whose fault it was, really. I don't know if Seth just took a bad step, and I don't know if it was Joe's fault, or if Joe was locking him into the coquina clutch just to kind of cover up that Seth was hurt. I don't really know all the ins and outs of what happened. And that's just for me rewatching the footage. So it didn't look like Joe badly blew a spot and hurt him, though.
Right. I don't think
it's
so.
not like, he ended Tyson Kidd's career. I mean, that one we can blame Joe for.
Yeah, his first appearance in a WWE ring, he damn near kills a guy that's pretty much considered to be a good worker. Never going to be a main eventer, but pretty much considered to be a good worker. Damn near kills the guy, but we're still to believe that he's phenomenal. I'm sorry, I don't get it, and there's been guys like this that I've not gotten it with, and I eventually got it with CM Punk. I was like, okay, I get his appeal. Don't get me wrong, I laughed my ass off when he got his ass kicked in the MMA fight, in the UFC fight, because it was like, you spent literally 2 years being Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, telling everybody how WWE sucks and you're going to be this big star in the UFC, and you get your ass handed to you. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to have tears in my eyes because you cut a stupid promo after you made an ass of yourself. Sorry, dude. You look stupid, and I'm laughing at you. Not proud. Hashtag not proud. How's that?
Sorry, guys. If I sound like really, really bad tonight, I am just getting over sickness. So, but yeah, my laughs are mixing with my cough. So
happens to me all the time, which is a problem because I like to laugh a lot. So it's kind of like whenever I laugh, I sound like a 90-year-old smoker. All right.
Nice.
It happens. So I got asked that sometimes when I'm sick. It's like, are you a smoker? It's like, no, I just whenever I laugh, I cough. Sorry. All right,
honestly,
dude.
I've only smoked once in my entire life, and I hated it. And I was like, I don't know how people get addicted to this.
8 years old in a hotel room in Anaheim, California. I put my hand on the top of a safe that happened to have an ashtray on it. I did not know this, and I burnt my hand. I don't touch cigarettes anymore. I learned very young, No, not for me. That hurt.
Yep. And I my parents are smokers, or they were smokers. They gave it up, but yeah, I just never was like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had smokers around the family. I saw what it does to you. I mean, I don't want to get too much into this stuff, but my uncle was this little guy, and he smoked a lot, and he got like Batari lungs to the point where he had somehow a little slit in his lung, right? And this is a true story. And he was a little guy, Korean War vet. Never ever spoke about it, but it was a Korean War vet, just a little guy. Loved him. Funny guy. Very much my straightforward approach to saying everything that comes to your mind without any kind of filter whatsoever. But anyway, he the little slit in his lungs, and he blew up like Violet from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Like his skin just started to expand because the air was coming out of his lungs like a balloon. It was bizarre. I mean,
man.
They kept doing things to relieve it, but it was the start of his end, and that that was the start of his cancer as well. So he had the balloon thing happening as well as cancer, and unfortunately, he didn't last very long. I don't think he lasted until, gosh, maybe 2 months. He didn't last very long with that at all. But anyway, not to depress everybody, but I'm just saying, don't smoke, kids. You'll burn your hand, or you'll blow up like Violet from Willy Wonka.
I feel like we're the end of a Filmation cartoon. Just, today, kids, you were supposed to learn this and this and this, and don't smoke. It's bad for you. He-Man out.
He-Man out, that's true. Yeah, they used to do those. Remember the G.I. Joe ones? Those were great, too. Not just
those were the best.
Not the parody ones, but like the really weird ones, like they had some really weird ones when they were legitimate. Not even just the joking around ones, but the legitimate ones were just like really weird. Like, remember, kids, don't cut across your neighbor's lawn on the way to school.
G.I. Joe.
Is that really a pressing issue that we needed to address with a public?
Well, my favorite one, there was one where two kids are like at a construction site, like playing around inside the house, like the frame of the house that's up. And to get out, they have to cross a plank. No, they have to jump across to get onto the sidewalk to the other side. And she was like, "But I can't jump that." And I was like, "Well, how'd you get in there in the first place?" Like, wait a minute. You can't jump out of the house, but how'd you get in the house?
So what was the moral of that story? What was the moral of that story, though?
I forget. I just remember being flabbergasted that it's like, well, how'd you get in? It's like, what happened?
Remember, kids, don't play at a construction site without a hard hat on.
Now we know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe.
There was like a weird story where Bobby Brady on the Brady Bunch had to like sneak into a house to rescue a cat, and that's for some reason what's popping in my head right now. Like a construction site house. I don't know. Oh man, I don't know how we ended up with the Brady Bunch. It always ends up with the Brady Bunch, though.
Yeah, Lawrence Henderson recently passed away.
Yeah, that was sad. That was sad. I still laugh whenever they show that commercial though with Machete.
Yeah.
With Machete.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah.
It's the part where he screams "Shut up" at them. I mean, you don't tell Mr. and Mrs. Brady to shut up. You just. I can watch like the famous B423 Get Fame commercials. I can watch that 100 times and just laugh my ass off. There you go.
Yep.
All right, we tied it back to the interview.
Before we end, Lucha Underground coming to Netflix next week, seasons 1 and 2. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be great.
That's good. I'm glad that they did get on there. As many eyeballs as possible. And I said on our Santino interview last week, as many eyeballs on the product is good for them. However, you do not come by an actual television deal very often. Just ask Jeff Jarrett in Global Force Wrestling. You do not get an actual television deal very easily. So do not squander that actual TV deal just for Netflix. It's not going to get viewed as much on Netflix as it will on El Rey with a set time slot. Now, with that said, I do think that the Netflix thing is a good thing as long as they don't squander the El Rey network.
I don't think they will because Robert Rodriguez, he produces the show, and he owns the El Rey network. So I think he's got invested interest in Lucha Underground and El Rey. So and as far as original programming go, I imagine that Lucha Underground's like their top original program on the channel.
Oh, it is.
So.
Yeah, El Rey Network has already put out a statement saying that even though they're going on Netflix, they're not going off of El Rey. And that was my biggest concern because you're going to lose too much if you do that. It's very dangerous. I believe in the old ways. I'm sorry if I sound that way, but I believe that how many people watched the football game, the big game, the Super Bowl on Sunday on the television screen? Almost everybody. How many people watched it on their iPhone? I'm sure there were some, but nowhere near as many. I just think that if you have a chance to be on television, the standard bearer, you don't want to squander that opportunity. And I think that they're aware of that, but when they first announced it, it sounded like everything was moving over to Netflix, and that was like really, really scary to me.
No.
And it was like, and it also, when Netflix put up the Full House episodes of the new run of it, they put every episode up at once. Well, there was no progression there. So it was kind of like, they brought Full House back. That's it. There was no like week-to-week episode.
Well, that's kind of how Netflix operates. It's built for, and a lot of the streaming services are built this way. They're built for binge watching, so that you can just sit there and just watch it all at once. That's kind of how it's built and structured.
Right. I don't know. I like to break it up. I think too much of one thing gets me actually sick of that thing.
I'm pretty good about it depends on how I'm feeling at the time. Like, if I'm really digging it and really liking it, then I will go ahead. Like, I want to see the next one. And before I know it, it's 3 in the morning. It's like, oh shit, I gotta get up in the morning.
Yeah, no, I can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore at all.
Yeah, I just, by the way, Netflix, I highly recommend Peaky Blinders. Great show, loved it.
What was it called?
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders. Okay.
Yes. It's a show about basically Irish, like an organized crime Irish family that fixes horse races, and it's post World War I, and it's great. I love the setting. I love the actors. It's just great. It's wonderful.
All right. Well, there's your recommendation of the week, and for me, I'm just going to say, stay tuned next week. We got another interview coming up with this time a TNA superstar. Did not do that interview yet because let's just say it didn't turn out well. Our schedules could not sync up, and it was a real pain in the ass the other day. But hopefully this coming week it turns out better. But this guy actually contacted us to ask to do the interview, which I thought was really cool because it saves me the effort of asking others to do an interview when they come into you and say, hey, would you interview me? That's cool. All right, sure. Anyway, well, you'll find out who that is next week. But
nice.
Thank you, man. Thank you for doing this with me, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. And everybody stay tuned here to WrestlingEpicenter.com.